The House Committee on Government Operations will come to order. Good morning, everyone. If anybody intends on speaking on the bills we have on the agenda today, we do ask that you fill out the white cards that are on the testimony table and then turn them into our clerk here. Mr. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Gold.
Here.
Representatives Harris.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Present.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
McFall.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 members present, a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Representative Vanderwall moves to approve the minutes from the April 24th meeting without objection. So ordered. Okay, first this morning we're going to take up testimony on House Bill 4288, sponsored by Representative Byrnes. I learned earlier this morning that Representative Byrnes can't be here today. Representatives, you're both co-sponsors. Either one of you want to speak on the bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am a co-sponsor, but really more speaking, I guess, as minority vice chair. Really just to say, this bill is intended to really help to break down any barrier that there is based on non-qualified applicants to offices. When we think about nepotism or favoritism based on relationships that maybe someone has while applying for a position within the state, we want to ensure that people's merits and their qualifications for such a position are the primary considerations when applying for that position.
Okay, thank you, Representative. We also have Representative Regas here. Representative Regas, if you want to come on up the testimony table, she's going to speak in regards to the merits of the bill as well.
Thank you, Chair Bagol, and the members of the Government Operations Committee for allowing me to testify in support of House Bill 4288, introduced by my Democratic colleague from the 15th District. House Bill 4288 requires state agencies to use at least one merit-based factor, such as education and work experience, when hiring an unclassified position. State government should be hiring people based on whether they can do the job well. We're putting merit and qualifications back at the heart of state government hiring. Taxpayers expect government to be efficient, focused, and fair. This bill restores the basic idea that people should be hired if they're qualified, not because they fit into some politically defined category. DEI programs have led to lowering standards, wasted resource, and a workforce chosen for optics, not excellence. This legislation corrects that, and it puts a stop to the idea that characteristics, which we don't control, should carry more weight than skill, experience, and drive. I'm excited that my friend from the 15th District, Representative Aaron Byrnes, who represents Dearborn, reintroduced my bill from last year. It's high time we stop wasting money on DEI programs that divide people and start hiring based on what really matters, qualifications and performance. I'm so happy that the Democrats have finally come to the side of common sense over activism. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Regas. Okay, Representative Fitzgerald has a question. Representative?
Thank you. Thank you, Representative, for coming in and speaking to this. I think that really, you speak to the bill that clearly you had, I think, put in last year. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So I think that this is really an opportunity for us to showcase that bipartisanship is possible within these hiring practices. I think that's great that we've underscored that. And I think that it's great, too, that, this committee, this body, is understanding that we want to make sure that we have equitable hiring practices. I think that that's really at the core of this, is that no one should be cast away or not considered for a position because of background or their experience, but rather have that be part of the merits of this. And so I think that this actually really does cut to an equitable and inclusive hiring practice. And so I really appreciate this body coming forward with that. My question really just has to do with the fact that has this in any way been amended or changed from your version last year?
It has penalties built in now. But I would like to touch back on what you said when you talk about equitable and fairness and all this. Now, this bill restores merit-based hiring based on education and work experience.
That's correct.
Correct. You expanded a little bit farther past that, but the merits of the bill are focused on education and work experience.
Yeah, I think I was more speaking to the intent of the bill, being that it, the intention being that this is an equitable and inclusive hiring process that we wish to see for these unclassified positions.
Well, we can
So-
argue about the intent of the bill, but it clearly states in the bill that education and work experience are in the forefront of the merit-based process, which this bill restores.
Not refuting that one bit, and I think that is a meritorious thing and something that we should absolutely underpin within this.
We should absolutely celebrate that. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Okay, thank you. I will offer amendment myself, though. You should have that before you. 876 clarifies that the bill applies to hiring applicants to offices within a department or agency of the executive branch as well. With that, I move my amendment. Mr. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
On the motion to amend, Chair Bagol,
Yes.
Representatives Harris,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Okay, the motion does pass. Okay, next, we do have a couple amendments as well. The first one is from Representative McFall, number 358. Representative, would you like to speak in regards to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My amendment it goes to pay equity, and it requires that it be tie-barred. Enacting this amendatory act does not affect unless the following bills, and there's a list of bills, unless you want me to read them.
No, thanks.
No,
I got it.
all right,
I mean,
thanks.
thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, would you like to move your amendment? Oh, yes. Sorry. Okay. Okay, Representative Fall moves his amendment be adopted. Will the clerk please call the roll?
On the motion to on the motion to amend, Chair Bagol,
No.
Representatives Harris,
No.
Vanderwall,
No.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 2 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. The motion does not prevail.
Okay, next, Representative Fitzgerald has an amendment for us, Amendment 130. Representative, would you like to speak in regards to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a bill similar to the one that we just heard, amending the bill to ensure that this bill would not take effect unless a series of bills regarding payroll fraud would be also enacted into law, and those are listed here in the amendment, but begin with House Bill 4316. I move my amendment.
Okay, Representative Fitzgerald moves his amendment. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
On the motion to amend, Chair Bagol,
No.
Representatives Harris,
No.
Vanderwall,
No.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 2 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. The motion does not prevail.
Okay, the amendment is not adopted. Okay, now Vice Chair Harris moves to report House Bill 4288 with recommendation. Will the clerk please call the roll? Oh, I should say as amended as a new substitute. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
On the motion to report as a new substitute, Chair Bagol,
Yes.
Representatives Harris,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
McFall.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Okay, House Bill 4288 is reported with recommendation as amended as a new substitute. Okay, secondly, we're going to take up testimony today on House Bill 4012. We have Representative Hoadley here today with us, and I believe he has a number of guests with him. Mr. Hoadley, if you want to make your way up to the testimony table and bring whatever guests you'd like to speak today, and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Bagol, and esteemed members of the Government Ops Committee for taking up in hearing testimony on House Bill 4012, affectionately referred to as Canjo's Law. Due to the space here, we're going to break. I had 4 testifying, and we're going to break it into 2s. For centuries, specially trained dogs have been utilized in assistance of security and protection, with expansion into formal programs for military and law enforcement starting in the late 1800s. Known as canine units, these specially trained dogs provide a broad range of unique advantages to our military, law enforcement, and our communities. Their uses include detection of narcotics and explosives, search and rescue, sniffing out crime scene evidence undetected by humans, aiding in the apprehension of suspects, and of course, officer and public safety. Michigan law permits emergency medical transport of active canine units. However, does not make allowance for retired canines. House Bill 4012 addresses this shortcoming by simply expanding service to official retired canines. To be clear, this bill would not mandate ambulance service, nor does it change the precedent of human life over that of the canine unit. I would like to take and turn over testimony to retired officer Brad Hoag and Canine Unit Segan to give a little more insight into the importance of our canine units, as well as the physical hardships endured by these faithful companions during their service. And retired officer Doug Stacer, Canjo's former handler, and Miss Jody Wilk from Canine Hero Guardians will testify after that. And then if there's any questions, I can come back up to our short table and answer any questions. So at this time, I'd like to hand this over to Officer Holp for a little more insight as into the importance of our canines.
Good morning, and thank you, members, for my faithful partner with me, Canine Segan. Canine Segan is a pure black German Shepherd from the Netherlands. He served the City of Saginaw Police Department for 8 years. He is currently 12 years old and will be turning 13 in August. The things that Segan would do throughout his day, he is a narcotics dog. He is a article searching dog, which means he can locate pieces of evidence from a crime scene, whether it be a discarded gun in the woods or a bag of money from a bank robbery or things of that nature. He's also a tracking certified dog, so if we have a missing elderly patient from a nursing home or a child that's left their home, he's had many successful tracks on locating those types of persons. So the basic duties of the canine can really range throughout the day of his 12-hour shift. We start the morning, obviously, leaving from home, check into service, and we can run on anything from traffic stops. We're assisting other agencies from our narcotics search point to get guns and or narcotics out of vehicles. From there, we can be called to the local elementary school to go into the classroom and read books to the kids. That's how friendly our dogs are. They can go back from a work mode to a training mode to a PR mode. We'll take them into the schools, read books. From there, we could be called to burglaries in progress, where someone had a home invasion where they weren't home and the suspect broke into a house and stole items and ran off. We've had many instances where we've arrived on scene and did successful tracks from homes and recovered stolen merchandise from houses. We've done many tracks for missing children. Just Easter came to mind, thinking of a good Easter track we had in a neighboring city to the north of us one morning on an Easter morning. Some kids were out searching for Easter eggs. We had 2 or 3 children in that home. One of the children went missing during the Easter egg hunt. We arrived on scene, and obviously the parents were frantic. The child had been out searching for Easter eggs and then just vanished. Unfortunately, it's very hard to distinguish one track from 3 other children's tracks when they're running around looking for Easter eggs in the yard. So what we did was we kind of located the last known area in the backyard for the child. I brought Segan out, we downed him at that location, and we started our track. We went all through different neighborhoods, through around blocks, 4 to 5 blocks to the northwest in this little city of Carlton. Segan tracked right to this big hedge, kind of an arboreta type hedge bush, a big green overgrown bush. He went right into that bush, and I heard a child, he didn't scream, but he was like joyous, like surprised. There, behold, was the child with his Easter egg basket. He just didn't want to share with his local siblings. He wanted to go away and look what was in his eggs on his own. So happy to see Segan. Surprised. I was surprised. Obviously, it was a joyous day. But that's just one occasion that kind of popped into my mind as my drive down here this morning, being that we just had Easter, that these dogs are crucial for that type of community involvement. And they're just, I can't barely have enough time to speak how important they are. When Segan retired, obviously he started declining. He's being an older dog. His hips are starting to degrade. He's starting to social back issues from jumping in and out of the car. You know, these dogs on a normal day might get in and out of the car 20 to 30 times, depending on how many bathroom breaks they take, or how many calls for service, or how many times we have to get them in and out of the vehicle. And if you just kind of have a picture of a normal police car, his police car for most of his working time was a Ford Explorer, which is about waist-high door opening, so he has to jump in and out of that car multiple times a day for 8 years straight. Not to mention that every other Wednesday for the entire life of a canine, while he's certified in the state of Michigan, he has to live up to the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards for training. So every other Wednesday we train for 8 hours for this dog. That means they're jumping fences, biting bad guys in bite suits, searching for narcotics. So not only does he does his shifts, he has to do every other Wednesday of training to uphold those Michigan Commission standards. And that's what Segan did. But the one thing that this bill I think would really help with, 4012, is that if the dog is injured outside of, being active, it's up to me to really save his life. And for me to drive and save his life at the same time is not going to happen. I need to be able to crawl in the back of the ambulance, get my trauma kit out. I'm trained to help in any type of laceration or anything that happens to the dog, and work on the dog while somebody else is driving the ambulance. That would just be tremendous to be able to do. If someone else could drive and I could be back there taking care of him, applying gauze or oxygen or CPR or whatever I need to do for him to help save his life. You can't do both. You can't drive and take care of a dog at the same time. So I think that's what's very important about this bill, and I ask that you all consider it for passing.
Okay, thanks very much, and thanks for your service. Do we have any questions? Representative McFall?
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate all the work that you do and the dog does and stuff, because in Hazel Park we have a canine unit, and just to give you an idea of how much the dog is loved, we actually won a canine suited vehicle, because the residents of Hazel Park, which only has 14,000 residents, it's a small city, voted over and over and over again, and our little city actually ended up winning a vehicle that was fully suited for the canine unit. And so I know all the great work that our canine unit does, so I really appreciate that. So I didn't really have a question, sorry.
Okay, Representative Vanderwall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. Just a quick question. I'm assuming 8 years in service is actually quite long. I was more curious of how many years the average dog is in his service, active service, because they have several years of training from my understanding. So I was just 8 years old is pretty long.
It is. It really varies depending on which agency you're in and how busy you are. If you're in a rural environment where you're not, apprehending and biting criminals every day, where you're not jumping chain link fences, where you might only get a couple tracks a month, a dog might be longer in the unit. We really gauge it on how the dog is acting in his environment, how his health is, and some dogs will only last 6 years depending on how active of service. Like his bottom canines in his mouth are actually worn down from all the apprehensions of bites on bite suits, and that really wears down on his teeth. So we take that into effect. So it could be anywhere from 4 years to 8 years. There's been some dogs I know that have been in the unit 9 or 10 years, but we really take their health into consideration.
Very good. And then, if I may, Mr. Chair, just when they retire, they go in to live the life of a normal dog as much as they can?
As much as possible. It's actually kind of sad because I've seen a lot of life leave out of Segan because he doesn't have a purpose anymore. He still gets up every morning at 5 a.m. I'm up at 5 a.m. wanting to go to work. And then when I don't load him into my car, to go to work, he becomes sad. He almost becomes depressed. So I own another business now, and I bring him into the business. I kind of give him purpose of searching the business for narcotics in there. Obviously, we never find any, but that gives him a purpose, So I try
Well, I'm
to do
glad that we don't find any of that.
I try to do that a couple times a week to keep him motivated, because if not, he just mopes around all day, and he becomes sad. So it is kind of hard on a canine working dog, but he does enjoy chasing ball in the yard and playing with my sons, and he does enjoy that type of life for sure.
Okay, Representative Fitzgerald.
Thank you very much. First, thank you so much for coming today to testify to this. Thank you for bringing along, is it Siegen?
Yes.
Like the city in Germany?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So thank you for bringing Siegen along as well. I have just a question about the operation of the bill. So we in Wyoming had a dog, a retired police dog, who was found unresponsive one morning by his handler, who was still an active duty officer, but had adopted or retired the dog into his care following their term of service. The dog was found unresponsive. That unfortunately resulted in that dog passing away. But my curiosity here is that seems like the perfect example of where this may have come into effect, is that dog needed ambulatory services to get them to care quickly. I know that it says for an active duty animal that it is injured in the line of duty, but if a retired police dog is injured or needs ambulatory services, that there's no requirement that they be injured. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct. Just
Okay.
requiring emergency transport
Okay.
services.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Great question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Representative, you want to introduce your next guest then?
Yes, thank you. And again, the good news is this room is obviously clean. So I'm going to step aside, and I'm going to leave the podium here to retired Officer Doug Stacer, who was Canjo's former handler, as well as Miss Jody Wilk from Canine Hero Guardians. And they're going to talk a little bit more about Canjo and what brought this bill to fruition, and why I felt it was so important to bring this legislation forth. So thank you.
Very good. We look forward to their testimony. Welcome. You may begin when you are ready.
Thanks for letting us come down and speak today. Like Mike said, I was Canjo's handler. 2011, Canjo and I went to training together. Actually, we went in Indiana. He worked the city of Saginaw for 8 years, retired in 2019. When he retired, I chose to retire him because I knew he was slowing down at work a little bit. And he was a German Shepherd, so they tend to work a little bit less. And I knew that I was going to be getting another dog, so I retired him because my thought was I want him to be able to live a life, not at work, and be home and just relax for a while. So after he retired for about a year, everything was great. And then all of a sudden one day, started limping. And now back up a little bit here. I got a new dog. My new dog and Canjo didn't really see eye to eye. So thankfully, great friends of mine, I went on vacation, didn't even intend for this to happen, went on vacation, and Jody, who her and I had formed a relationship, created a nonprofit, raised money for police canines. I went on vacation for a week, and Jody's like, hey, he can stay here. Well, he went there, their bond was like inseparable, and he ended up just staying with Jody, and that was one of the best decisions, because when he started to fail because of his hips and his back, especially his back, I wasn't able to give him the care that he needed 24 hours a day with working full-time, running another dog. And they stepped up, and he lived another 2 years because of them. But his back went out, he had back surgery. One thing led to the next. He was back and forth to Lansing. We were all over the state with him. But we struggled sometimes with this transport, and that was one of the reasons for this bill, is that there were times that when Jody would take him down to Lansing, she was not even sure she was going to get him there. And had she been able to like be with him, because you can't drive, watch him, you hear him breathing differently. So had this been available to us, he could have got to where we needed him to get care quicker, and with a little bit of comfort because we would have been with him. You know, unfortunately, one of his last surgeries, his kidneys had collapsed, and under surgery he passed away. And that was all related from his initial back surgery. Jody will expound on that a little bit, but you know, it was unfortunate, but there was a lot of medical bills and a lot of medical things. And, you know, we put these dogs through a lot, like Brad had said. You know, the narcotics and the arson odor and, you know, the dogs jumping up and down and over fences. Like, we don't realize that. My current dog, we did an x-ray on his back, and his is bad as well. So I've taken some changes with him working. Yeah. Well, you have any questions for me, and I'll shove it over to Jody. She's got a lot more to say than I do.
When Representative Hoadley had called me a couple days ago to say that Canjo's Law had received a hearing date, it took me a couple hours to realize that today was May 1st, 5/1. Canjo's badge number is 51. So very appropriate that this hearing be for today. In June of 21, like Doug said, Canjo had major back surgery. We had taken him in. The x-ray at his primary vet showed that it was spondylosis. A little bit of research showed that cold laser therapy may be a treatment option to help relieve some of the pain. But MSU wanted to do a full neurological evaluation. So I took him down for what was supposed to be just a simple nose to tail check to make sure, yep, laser therapy would be a good treatment option. However, the doctor came in and said, it's more than spondylosis. We're pretty sure that it's degenerative disc disease. But the only way to know for sure is to do an MRI. So they asked for him to come back first thing the next morning. They said that if it was in fact the disc disease, that they highly recommend going straight into surgery. So I sat in the parking lot of MSU because in 2021 we were still under COVID restrictions. So I couldn't hang out inside, and I waited. 5-hour surgery. He made it through. Had no idea what we were in for. I've seen where other dogs have had this surgery before. I don't know how anybody who can hold a job can do 24/7 care for 6 weeks on a dog after a surgery like that. Thankfully, my mom was able to care for him. She's a nurse, so she was able to pick up on things. And unfortunately, 2 weeks after his surgery, he started showing some major signs of issue. And that was the first time that emergency transport could have been a lifesaver. Getting me to MSU sooner. It was 4th of July weekend. I was actually set up at a yard sale for the Aranet County Sheriff's Canine Program fundraiser. Left that, picked Canjo up, flew to MSU. We're not going to talk about how fast I was going, but the entire time he didn't stir in the back of my car. I had to move over and ended up hitting some rubble strips, and anytime I would hit a rubble strip, Canjo was up, and oh my gosh, what's going on? Where are we going? Didn't even see an ear twitch, and so I was convinced that we had lost him on the way. He stirred when we got to MSU. They kept him for a day or two that weekend. Tests came back that he had sepsis, and we have since learned in his passing that sepsis is just in dogs is similar to humans in that once you survive it, if you survive it, you will continue to have problems for no apparent reason. And there were 2 more times where I needed to get to an emergency clinic with him and I needed to be with him, but I couldn't drive and provide that care for him at the same time, including the night that we lost him. Little did we know, we thought it was bloat. He was looking like his chest cage was expanding, so it looked like he was bloating. It was actually a collapsed lung that we didn't know about. So I could have been providing him breathing treatments on the trip down, but I couldn't. Canjo's Law is to help these retired canines that, yes, they're officially retired from their department, but many of these retired canines continue to work. Canjo was one of them. He continued through social media posts that we made. We told his story about the backs. We are learning more about the wear and tear on the backs of these dogs. Just like Doug's current dog. We did a back x-ray that our Canine Hero Guardians, our nonprofit, paid. We were able to get an inside look of what's going on with the dogs, because these working dogs don't show pain until it's too late or until something major needs to happen. Doug has a chance now and has already made adjustments. He's not jumping in and out of the truck as much. He's not running up the stairs a million times. He's a little bit more cautious on the training and the bite work that needs to be done to maintain his training. And Kanjo did that in retirement. And so the very least that we can do for these dogs that have served our communities is to provide them with the care that they need in their retirement life. And we're not asking for taxpayers or the ambulance service to pay for these expenses. This would fall on the handler or an organization such as ours to help the handler pay for it. We're not even asking for the medics to provide the care. Just get us to the emergency clinic. Let us be with the handler or with the canine so that we can provide them the care that they need and get to the clinics in an efficient time.
And to double on that, my current chief, who Kanjo never worked for him, he said, take the patrol car, get to Lansing, transport him wherever you need to go. So he stepped up and let us. Jody jumped in the car, and we took him from Lansing to another clinic because they couldn't perform what they needed, and so that helped. But that isn't always an option, you know, for a lot of departments. It was we were thankful that the chief allowed us to do that, so that allowed us to get there quicker.
Representative McFall has a question for you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for being here and telling your story. I would like, I was just wondering, like, if this passes, how will the ambulance, and this might not be a question for you guys, it might be for Rep. Hoadley, how will the ambulance services know, like, because if somebody refuses or you know, because they aren't aware, is your organization going to,
Absolutely.
Assume. Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. I just wanted to know how they were going to find out.
Because
okay.
on my way here, I was thinking I need to tell them we will do that education. We will send literature out. We will meet with the ambulances. You know, they already are. Most of them are already aware of the current law with active duty. In 2020. Saginaw Police Canine Debo was stabbed in the line of duty, and MMR was there. There were no humans that needed that ambulance, and his handler was able to staunch the bleeding while the ambulance was able to get him to emergency care. So they're already aware of that portion. We will just add the explanation of the retired part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Your compassion definitely shows, and we appreciate that. Representative Fitzgerald?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just want to add a little bit of context and first say thank you very much again for coming and explaining Kanjo's story. I think it really does help to illuminate the need for this legislation, and I appreciate that. The district that I come from, we have a long history of our public servants, our elected officials, really helping to support canine officers in the community, and I'm glad that I'm able to carry that on by being supportive of this legislation. But beyond that, I really want to point out that this is also about very special animals in our communities as well. If you have ever been to, you know, the picnic in the park and the police come to build relationships with the community, the first officer that they want to talk to is the canine. The first officer that they want to talk to is the canine. That these are not just exceptional law enforcement officers in our communities, but they are, quite frankly, part of the spirit of our community. And so I just want to say I'm so sorry for the loss of Kanjo. Thank you for his service and for your care that you provided to him and for helping to really highlight the importance of this legislation. So thank you.
And it's to tag on to that. I watched, so Canine Hero Guardians does a lot of fundraising for the active and the retired canines. We were set up at the Mid-Michigan Children's Museum in Saginaw, and this was 2014 maybe. And Doug was there with Kanjo, and a grandma and her grandson had come in, and he had seen the police, and he was petrified. And grandma explained to me afterwards that there was a situation, his parents had been arrested, it was not a good situation. Little boy was afraid of the police after that. Well, Doug was sitting somewhere, or had gone up to him, the little boy was putting a puzzle together, and he sat down with Kanjo, and the three of them, Kanjo, put the puzzle together. Well, after a while, when they were getting ready to leave, Grandma stopped, and she says, he can't stop talking about that nice police officer and his police dog. Now he wants to be a police officer. So, and it's not just the finding the bad guys and the drugs and the bombs and the other things that they're trained to do. It's that bridging the community.
Well said, Representative. I can attest to the fact when the kids are there, the first thing they go to is the dog. So. Okay, well, thanks very much for your compelling testimony, and we, again, appreciate the service and what you're doing.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple cards to read in here. Not wanting to speak in support of the bill is Deborah Murphy of Saginaw. Not wanting to speak in support of the bill is Ann Griffin of Michigan Humane. And not wanting to speak in support of the bill is Mike Caparoni of Human World for Animals. Okay, seeing no further business before the committee, we'll stand adjourned.